Bruce Lee didn't just kick and punch his way into history. He revolutionized the very way people think about martial arts. Before him, traditional martial arts were seen as fixed systems, rigid, bound by centuries of doctrine. You learned a style, followed it religiously, and never dared to question the master. But Bruce Lee? He questioned everything. At a time when martial arts was more about memorization than innovation, Bruce Lee brought in philosophy, critical thinking, and above all, practicality. He believed that martial arts should be about the individual, not the institution. Not about style, but about effectiveness. And that changed everything. Bruce Lee's core belief was simple but radical. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. That single quote flipped the martial arts world upside down. Suddenly, it wasn't about being a master of one traditional system. It was about becoming the best version of yourself, using any and all tools available. Bruce Lee wasn't loyal to a single tradition. He was loyal to truth. In the early days, Bruce trained in Wing Chun under the legendary Ip Man. But even then he saw limits. Wing Chun was powerful, fast, and effective in close quarters. But what about distance fighting? What about grappling? What about kicks from Taekwondo, footwork from fencing, or boxing jabs that could shatter someone's rhythm? Bruce began experimenting, combining, testing. He trained not to look good, but to be good. He wasn't interested in pretty kata or high-flying forms. He wanted real, raw combatability. He'd test techniques in street fights, sparring matches, even against boxers and wrestlers. If something worked, he kept it. If it didn't, it was gone. That was the birth of Jeet Kune Do. Not a style, but an idea. A way of thinking. A system that had no system. Before Bruce, martial arts was a religion. After Bruce, it became a science. He encouraged martial artists to think for themselves, to experiment, to adapt, and most importantly, to evolve. No more blind loyalty to tradition. No more rigid drills that never applied in real life. Bruce introduced the concept of realism into martial arts training. If it didn't work under pressure, in chaos, in the middle of a fight, it was worthless. Bruce trained like a madman, not just physically but mentally. He read philosophy, psychology, science, and even fencing manuals. He studied biomechanics and muscle structure. He believed the body was a machine, and like any machine, it needed to be fine-tuned. That's why he was obsessed with fitness, diet, and strength training. Long before it became popular in martial arts, his training regimen was decades ahead of its time. He lifted weights, ran miles, shadowboxed for hours, and used isometric training to build explosive power. He incorporated elements of yoga, bodybuilding, and gymnastics. He wasn't just practicing martial arts. He was engineering his body to be the ultimate weapon. And it wasn't just the physical training. Bruce Lee transformed the mental approach too. He taught that fear, ego, and hesitation were the real enemies. He trained his mind to be water, formless, adaptable, calm under pressure. This idea of mental fluidity became central to modern martial arts training. Fighters today meditate, visualize, and practice mindfulness, things Bruce was doing back in the 1960s. One of the most underrated impacts Bruce Lee had was his introduction of cross-training. Today, MMA fighters train in wrestling, BJJ, Muay Thai, boxing, and more. That mindset started with Bruce. He was the first to say, "Why limit yourself to one style?" His idea was simple. Take what works from every art and mold it into something personalized. He didn't care where a technique came from, only if it worked. That mindset broke down barriers. Bruce inspired martial artists to step out of their silos. Karate practitioners started boxing. Judo fighters started kicking. Taekwondo athletes began grappling. And all of them had Bruce Lee to thank for that mental shift. He also revolutionized sparring. At a time when many schools practiced no contact or choreographed fighting, Bruce pushed for full contact sparring. He wanted realism, pressure, intensity. He wore protective gear and allowed his students to go hard, to feel what a punch really felt like, to understand timing, distance, and rhythm in live combat. This laid the foundation for modern training methods used in MMA, kickboxing, and even police and military self-defense programs. Bruce also brought the idea of individual expression into martial arts. Before him, you followed the master's path. But Bruce said, a good teacher protects his pupils from his own influence. That was unheard of. He wanted his students to outgrow him, to question him, to discover their own path. This empowered a generation of fighters and teachers to be creative, to innovate, and to trust themselves. The ripple effect of Bruce's philosophy reached far beyond martial arts schools. In Hollywood, he showed that fight scenes didn't have to be stiff and fake. They could be fast, raw, and explosive. In fitness, he showed that martial artists could lift weights and still be fast. In education, he proved that questioning authority wasn't rebellion, it was evolution. His notebooks were filled with drawings, quotes, training ideas, and fight strategies. He documented his journey like a scientist. That approach influenced how martial arts schools structured their curriculums, how fighters tracked progress, and how coaches designed programs. It became less about tradition and more about results. Even the UFC, the most popular combat sports platform in the world, owes its DNA to Bruce Lee. Dana White has called Bruce the father of mixed martial arts. And he's not wrong. Everything the UFC promotes, versatility, realism, testing skills in the cage, Bruce was doing it decades before it became mainstream. But maybe Bruce's greatest gift was his mindset. He believed the real battle wasn't external, it was within. Against fear, against ego, against laziness. He said, knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. That mantra echoes in every serious gym, every determined fighter, every person who pushes past their limits. He taught that martial arts was not just about fighting, but about living, about being present, being disciplined, being authentic. That's why people from all walks of life, not just fighters, follow his teachings. CEOs, athletes, soldiers, artists, all have quoted Bruce Lee as a guiding light, because his philosophy wasn't about violence. It was about mastery, of body, of mind, of life. And that's why Bruce Lee will always matter. He showed us that martial arts is not a set of rules, it's a mirror. It shows you who you are, where you're weak, where you're strong, and where you need to grow. His legacy is not in a museum. It's in every gym that trains for reality, every fighter who seeks improvement, every person who dares to challenge tradition in search of truth. Bruce Lee didn't just change martial arts training. He changed the way we think, the way we live, the way we fight. And that impact will echo forever.